Who wants to start? Ann.
Hi, Steve. How are you?
Okay.
Just facing the champions at this point in this little surge, how much of a test is this to and legitimize what you guys have been up to in the last couple of games?
Yeah, it's a great test for us. Obviously, we're playing better now than we have all season. But this is the ultimate test, playing against the defending champs. They've had our number this year. We've had 3 really close games against them, and the last one in particular hurt, giving up the big lead late. But we're a different team, playing pretty well at both ends, and this is a good opportunity to prove that.
Steve, in honor of the great Clifford Ray who's here today, you guys have been unbelievable on the glass, and you're not a big team. What do you attribute that to?
I would say coaching, but it's definitely not coaching. I think we've got some individual guys who have really helped us. Brandon Podziemski is a great rebounder for a guard, and he's really changed our team from that perspective, from that position. Getting more rebounds than most guards would from that spot. Looney's an excellent box out guy. He may not be a huge rebound guy, but we have a lot of guys who are conscientious rebounders and don't have to get the board to impact the play. Draymond is one of the smartest players I've ever been around, and so I think just those factors, and then we have emphasized the offensive glass a little bit more this year, and tried to get some extra possessions that way.
You gave Saric a pretty long run, I think, last night. Not necessarily, though, at the 5 anymore. Is he kind of now a power forward the way this was working? Do you see him almost strictly in the second, obviously his connection with CP? Where do you see him right now?
Yeah, he hasn't played as much the last couple of weeks, and some of it is CP's absence. Those guys are so good together, and I think Dario misses Chris a little bit. Chris just has a knack for finding him in great spots, and then I think we've been playing him with Trace, so playing him more at the 4. So we can get the rim protection that Trace gives us and kind of protects Dario in some ways. And we like that combination, but it's sort of matchup based. It kind of depends on who we're playing and personnel.
Small sample size, excuse me, and just 2 games since after the All-Star break. But what have you thought of Klay and his new role so far?
It's been great. His approach feels so much better than it was even a few weeks ago. This has been an emotional season for him. You guys know this. He's been grappling with his mortality in some ways as an athlete. He knows how good he was 6 years ago, and he's had a hard time reconciling everything after the injuries. And the thing that we keep trying to convince him of is he's still a hell of a player, but he's at his best when he's not pressing and he's not stressed out and worried about trying to be the guy he was 6 years ago. And I think coming off the bench has maybe helped in that regard. I just notice he's more relaxed. His approach, his leadership in the locker room, it feels different. And I think he's starting to get more comfortable with the role, but also just kind of the bigger picture stuff that has been bothering him. I think Aaron is in some ways the key to their team. We all know how great Jokic is, and Murray, the 2-man game. But Aaron's physicality took over the game last time we were here when they came back from down 18 mid-4th. He just dominated the paint, and so in some ways he kind of forces you to play bigger, forces you to put somebody who can deal with that physicality on him. And then, of course, if you do that, then it can also limit you offensively because you don't have the spacing and the speed that you would have otherwise. So I think Gordon's just been an amazing player for Denver, and he really has found his niche, playing alongside Nikola and Jamal.
Hi, Steve. When you moved Brandon into the starting lineup, one of the things you cited a couple times is the numbers with that five-man grouping. How much do you lean on analytics for lineup decisions like that? I mean, 10, 15 years ago, that wouldn't have necessarily been available. And how much does it help when there's emotion involved when you're taking a guy out of the starting lineup who's won 4 championships?
It does help. I mean, I think it wouldn't be wise to base your decisions all on the numbers. I think what you really want is for the tape to match the numbers, because we all, as coaches, we kind of have an inkling of who's playing well together. But you know, maybe certain lineups that haven't played together a whole lot, and you know, you start to get a big enough sample size over the course of the year, it does matter. So we try to just match those things and make sure we're not being disillusioned by some numbers that are inflated because of a small sample size, if that makes sense. I mean, if you and I played together and they hit a half court shot and then I missed 2 layups, and our plus minus is bad together, that's not your fault, and so it's But I would, if I were an analytics guy, I would blame you and bench you. So you just got to be careful with it. I think we all recognize sample size is important, but if the numbers match the eye test, then I think you're onto something.
I guess my follow-up is how much did the numbers matter in that? It seemed like, you mentioned it.
Yeah, they did matter, but again, they matched the film, what we were seeing. Brandon took 3 charges the other night in the first half. He leads the league in charges. I mean, that's a big deal for our defense, and he's a cutter, he's a ball mover. So with Wiggs and J.K., to go back to the numbers, their numbers the first half of the season were really bad together. So we felt like we needed to play Brandon and Draymond with those guys to try to loosen up the game a little bit, get a little more passing and cutting. And when Brandon went with that lineup, that's what we saw, that's what we felt, and the numbers have bared that out as well.
Steve, Brandon turns 21 today. What do you think about the player he is at his age, and how might you compare that to how you were as a player at 21?
First of all, he's remarkably advanced for his age, and his experience or lack thereof. I mean, he really only had 1 full season of college basketball where he played a lot. He's got great instincts for the game. He's got a knack for being in the right place at the right time in terms of rebounding, passing lanes, loose balls, all that stuff. He still has a lot of work ahead of him. I think he overhelps sometimes. He sees things as they're unfolding, but sometimes, you got to stay in your gap, stay in your lane, and he'll overdo it. And we're trying to teach him that. We're trying to teach him also not to steal a rebound from Draymond, although Draymond is doing a good job of teaching him that right now. But there are plays like that he's got to sort of recognize and understand. But you'd way rather have that than the opposite, where a guy doesn't see the pictures. So he sees everything, so he tries to do everything. But it's a good problem to have, because it's really easy to coach a guy into making those corrections rather than the other way around.
What about you? She was asking compared to.
No comparison. I just stood there and took wide open shots, and I didn't get any rebounds. I didn't cut. I didn't play the passing lanes. I was a statue out there. So this guy's a ball player.
Did you miss any layups?
I didn't get any layups. I shot technical free throws. That's my only trip to the line.
Part of your reasoning on Draymond at center is there's just not monster centers all across the league, but obviously you have one here today. How do you view him, in this particular matchup, and the way you want to kind of deploy your center position when you do face like a Jokic?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the reasons we know we're going to still need Loon, and I'm trying to kind of juggle minutes between Loon and Trace, because we're going to need both of them for different matchups. This is one where Loon his experience against Jokic matters. And, how many minutes can Draymond play against Jokic today or in a playoff game? That's a great question, and I think the game will probably dictate that based on foul trouble or fatigue or whatever. So, we'll obviously start the same way we've been starting and go from there. But all of our big guys have to be ready to guard him.